All right, so we're diving deep into Atomic Habits for a great year in 2025. I'm guessing you're not here for just a basic rundown. You want the stuff that'll actually make 2025 your best year yet, right?
You got it. And what's really cool about this article is how it emphasizes those tiny changes.
Tiny changes, huh?
Yeah, the ones you apply consistently that end up leading to those amazing results. Like it's not about some huge overnight thing. It's more about those little shifts in your routine that build up.
Yeah, that's what really hit me too, that compounding thing. Like it says in the article, our lives are basically just all our daily habits, combined.
Exactly.
So if we can get those habits working for us and not against us, that's when things get interesting. The question is how? How do you actually do that?
That's where this Atomic Habits framework comes in. It's based on James Clear's book, and it's basically a science-backed approach to building habits that actually last.
Okay, so a system, I like it.
Yeah, and it boils down to four main laws. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and then make it satisfying.
I mean, those sound pretty simple when you put it like that, but I'm
Yeah.
sure there's more to them than meets the eye. Let's break them down. What about that first one, that make it obvious? The article uses the example of putting your journal on your pillow if you want to journal at night. Isn't that like a little too simple?
Oh, it might seem that way, but there's a real psychological reason it works. It's kind of like our brains are wired to respond to cues,
Hmm.
to triggers in our environment. So by making that habit, whatever it is, obvious, you're setting up a clear prompt. It triggers the behavior.
Oh, so it's about taking out the decision fatigue. You see the journal and boom, you're reminded to write.
Gotcha.
What about make it attractive? They talk about linking habits to your values,
Hmm.
but how do you actually do that?
Okay, let's say you're trying to exercise regularly, but motivation is tough. If family is a huge value for you, you might reframe exercise as a way to be healthy and energetic so you can be more present with your family.
Right, right.
So it's not just about hitting the gym, it's about something much bigger and more meaningful.
I love that example. It's fantastic. It makes such a difference for motivation because now it's not just about willpower. It's about aligning your actions with what you truly care about.
Right.
All right, so make it easy. This one's right up my alley because who doesn't want things to be easy?
For sure.
The article mentions prepping healthy snacks so you're not tempted by junk food. I mean, that's making it easy, right?
Exactly. It's all about reducing what's called activation energy. Think of it like the effort it takes to start that new habit.
Hmm.
The easier it is to get started, the less activation energy you need, and the more likely you are to actually do it.
Yeah, and so prepping snacks ahead of time, that's removing obstacles, basically.
Absolutely. It's about setting up an environment that actually helps your habits, not one that sabotages them.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, last but not least, make it satisfying.
Yeah.
This one seems pretty straightforward. We all love a little reward, right? But how does that tie into building habits that last?
So rewards, even small ones, they actually trigger dopamine release in the brain. So you get that pleasure,
Mm.
that satisfaction, and that positive feeling, it makes us more likely to repeat the behavior that got us there.
It's all about reinforcing that positive loop.
Hmm.
The article talks about celebrating milestones, but are there other ways to make habits more satisfying day to day?
Tons. Like even just tracking your progress in a visually appealing way, maybe filling in a habit tracker, using a fun app, or pairing the habit with something you enjoy, like listening to your favorite music while you work out or whatever your habit is.
It's all about finding those little things that spark joy, that make the process fun. Because building habits shouldn't feel like a chore. It should be something you're actually excited about.
I totally agree with that.
So we've got those 4 laws down, but how do we actually put them into practice? I'm guessing the article's got some actual strategies for it.
Oh, yeah, it totally does.
Okay, good, because now I'm ready to get tactical.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah.
So one strategy that really jumps out is habit stacking.
Habit stacking. Okay, I like the sound of that. What is it?
So it's basically using your existing routine to your advantage. Like you take a habit you already do without thinking, like brushing your teeth,
Right.
and you stack a new habit right on top of it. So maybe you decide, okay, I'm going to do 2 minutes of mindfulness meditation right after I brush my teeth.
Oh, so you're using the existing habit as like the trigger for the new one.
Exactly.
It's like you're creating a chain reaction of good habits.
You got it.
That's pretty clever. I could see how that would make it way easier to remember and stick with it.
Hmm.
Are there any other strategies that are like kind of brain hacks like that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's the 2-minute rule. It sounds almost too simple, but there's some real psychology behind it.
Okay, I'm all ears. 2-minute rule, lay it on me.
So it's about breaking down those big goals, the ones that feel kind of overwhelming,
Right.
into tiny little 2-minute starting points. Like, let's say you want to start exercising regularly, but the thought of a full workout is like, ooh, No way.
Yeah.
So instead of forcing yourself into that hour at the gym, you just commit to 2 minutes. Could be a quick walk around the block, a few stretches, anything.
Wait, 2 minutes? That just seems so, I don't know.
It does, right. But it's all about overcoming that initial resistance, that inertia. You
Uh-huh.
make the start so easy you almost can't say no. And then usually what happens is once you've started, you just keep going.
Oh, so it's like tricking yourself to get moving, basically.
Pretty much.
I like it. It's about outsmarting that resistance. Okay, what else?
So there's also the 1% rule.
All right, the 1% rule. Does this one involve math?
Nope, no calculators needed. It's about those small, consistent improvements over time. The idea is that if you can get just 1% better each day at whatever you're working on, those tiny gains add up, like big time in the long run.
It's that compounding effect again, right?
Mhm.
Like small but steady wins the race.
Exactly. It's like with investing. Small, consistent contributions end up leading to big results. It's a good reminder that you don't need to change everything overnight. It's more about those little improvements that make the real difference.
So it's not about perfection, it's about progress.
Exactly.
I like that. Okay, so we've got habit stacking, the 2-minute rule, and the 1% rule. All great strategies, but how do we actually use them? Does the article give us any guidance on that?
Yeah, it does. It lays out like a habit roadmap to help put those principles into action. And it starts with figuring out what your top priorities are for 2025. Like, what are those big goals, the things you really want to achieve?
So first, get clear on the big picture.
Yeah.
Got it. What's next?
Then you break those big goals down into smaller, more manageable habits, the ones that will actually support those goals. So let's say your goal is to write a book.
Okay.
A supporting habit could be writing for 30 minutes every morning. Or if your goal is to be more fit, the habit might be taking a 20-minute walk 3 times a week.
So you're connecting the daily actions to the long-term goals.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And then I'm guessing we need to set some realistic goals for those habits, right?
Exactly. The article actually warns against making them too hard, especially when you're starting out. It's much better to start with something you know you can actually do, even if it seems a little too easy, and then you just gradually make it a little more challenging.
That's a good point. It's about setting yourself up to win. Okay, what about tracking progress?
So the article is really big on tracking your habits and holding yourself accountable. There are a bunch of different tools you can use, from like simple pen and paper to those fancy habit tracking apps. The important thing is to find a system that works for you and that keeps you going.
So by actually tracking it, we're making it more real.
You got it.
Okay, I'm with you there. So when we have those days where we just don't feel like it, what do we do? How do we tap into that growth mindset? Any tips from the article?
Well, one thing they suggest is reframing those moments of resistance. So instead of seeing it as like a failure, you see it as an opportunity to learn and maybe adjust things.
Okay.
Like maybe the habit needs a little tweak, or maybe you need to figure out a different way to motivate yourself.
It's about being flexible,
Mm.
right? Not giving up at the first hurdle. But how do you actually shift your thinking like that? From I messed up to, okay, this is a chance to learn.
It definitely takes practice. But one thing that can help is asking yourself, what can I learn from this? Like maybe you realize that hitting the gym after work is a recipe for disaster because you're just too tired. So you try working out in the morning or at lunch instead.
So it's about using those setbacks as information,
Yeah.
right, to figure out what really works for you. But even with the best mindset, there are going to be days when it's just plain hard. What about those moments of weakness?
The article talks a lot about self-compassion.
Mhm.
Like we all have those days where we slip up. The key is to not beat yourself up about it. Just acknowledge it, figure out what you can learn, and get back on track.
Yeah, that's such a good point. It's so easy to fall into that all or nothing thinking, where one slip up feels like you've ruined everything. This way is so much better, so much more, I don't know, forgiving.
It really is. It's about remembering that this is a journey. There will be bumps in the road, but it's about keeping moving forward, even if it's just a tiny step at a time.
It's a marathon, not a sprint, right? Speaking of celebrating those small wins, does the article talk about rewarding yourself?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Positive reinforcement is huge. So every time you stick to your habit, even if it's just for a couple of minutes, take a second to recognize that. Even just saying good job to yourself or giving yourself a little treat.
It's about making it something you enjoy, right?
Exactly. Turning that have to into a want to. And over time, the habit itself becomes the reward.
So we've covered a lot today. Those 4 laws, strategies for building lasting habits, even how to use that growth mindset to stay motivated. Any last bits of wisdom from the article that you think our listeners should really remember?
You know what really stuck with me is the ending. how they say, start today. Like there's no need to wait for the perfect time or to have everything perfectly planned out. Just pick one tiny habit that'll make a difference in your 2025 and take that first step.
I love that. It's a good reminder that we're in control. We can actually shape our own lives one little habit at a time. And it all starts with that first step.
Yeah. Here's a question for you to think about. What's one tiny habit you could start today that would make 2025 better? Could be anything, drinking more water, showing some gratitude, anything. Really let that sink in.
And remember, no matter how small that step is, it's still a win. So celebrate it. You're on your way to building those atomic habits and making 2025 amazing. Thanks for diving deep with us.